Once, while swimming at the beach, you might notice a phenomenon like this. Literally within just a few hours, the water level drops by several meters, and there will be no visible signs of a storm or a hurricane. So, if you thought it was just the tide going out, I want to disappoint you. The thing is, if you look at a wave from the side, the currents in it swirl in a spiral, pulling all the mass of water in front of it and ejecting it upward. The result is that the longer you stare at the horizon without seeing any wave, the further you'll need to run when it finally appears. But what if you're somewhere where there's nowhere to run, like in the middle of the ocean? This is exactly what an ordinary sailor experiences every day. Many videos filmed by sailors trigger an inexplicable sense of panic in people. This feeling even has a name: thalassophobia. In its essence, this is the most primal kind of fear, associated with the feeling that you are facing complete unknown. That's like being afraid of the dark. Logically, you understand that there's just emptiness there, but your intuition still tells you that something is there, something to be afraid of. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. Today, we will discuss several interesting topics. Who does the narwhal defend itself from with its tusk? Where did the metal sphere that was dropped to the bottom of the Mariana Trench go? Things you should never go into the water after seeing. What happens if you dive too deep? And what people saw when they boarded a ghost ship? Have you ever wondered what it feels like to be a person without an arm? I mean, we're used to feeling it there. We can bend it or touch something with it. But what if it suddenly disappears? The brain still sends signals to do something, but they don't reach anywhere. Now imagine an animal that has never had arms or legs. For example, a regular snake. Does its brain send signals to move limbs if there have never been limbs? Well, recently, engineers attached mechanical limbs to a regular snake and connected them to its nervous system through a processor. And if you've understood this so far, then the very fact that this experiment succeeded could change our reality beyond recognition. Because now we can use this discovery to create new devices just by connecting our technology to living organisms. And the coolest thing is that such devices could be created by anyone. See, fundamentally, these devices function based on signals coming from sensors on nerve endings, and decoding these signals can be helped by AI technologies, which, in turn, are written in programming languages like Python. All of you know that fish with a huge tusk on its head. Of course, probably not in person, because the tusk of this fish can reach almost 10 feet long, meaning it could easily impale 9 people. But even without touching it, I still have a couple of questions for this fish. Its name comes from the Icelandic language, which sounds like narwhal, and if you translate it literally, it comes out as corpse whale. And here, you might assume that the narwhal hunts whales and leaves their corpses behind, but it's not that obvious. In 2017, specialists from National Geographic observed the behavior of narwhals in the wild, and they found no evidence that they use their tusk for anything other than stunning small fish. That is, the strange thing is that this tusk looks as if it is made to defend themselves from someone or attack. But it turns out narwhals are not predators at all. They actually feed on mollusks, shrimp, and small fish. So their tusk is just a useless stick on their head. Maybe that's the case. But there's one important fact. Narwhals can hunt at depths of over about 0.6 miles, and at such depth, we still don't know how exactly they use their tusks. So it's most likely that we just haven't seen the creatures they defend themselves from. Perhaps the depth of the narwhal seemed large enough to you, But then look at what happens if we double the depth. At that depth, light hardly penetrates through the water, so if you turn your head upwards, you'll see approximately this. But what if we go even lower and even lower? Yes, you understood correctly. This is the Mariana Trench. You are already familiar with it. Its depth is 10 times greater than the depth to which narwhals dive. Just to give you a sense, any object that reaches such depth will be crushed by the entire mass of water in the ocean above it. That's how Archimedes' principle works. So, if you were trying to imagine what would happen to you, don't worry, I'll show you. But you might ask, what's the point of this story about depth? Do we have nothing better to do? The point is that life has been recorded at such depths, life that has lived there all this time. And here's a question about this life. How can we understand that? When scientists dropped an ordinary metal sphere to the bottom of the Mariana Trench and retrieved it, they determined that it had begun to be eaten by a rare type of bacteria called Halomonas titanici, which somehow learned to survive at such great depth. And yes, they exist in other places on the planet too. But the strangest thing is that at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, they are the most abundant. And if you look at video footage of the sunken Titanic, the streaks aren't rust, they're the bacteria eating it all this time. That is, they literally feed on iron. But now think about it, if we discovered such bloodthirsty iron-eating bacteria at such extreme depths, how do you think things that we haven't discovered yet look like? Now, let's rise a little to the deck of a ship. Let's say you are an ordinary sailor. You step out from the bridge onto the deck. All you see around is pitch darkness, and only faint glimmers on the water from the lights of your ship. For some unknown reason, this scene triggers an inexplicable feeling of fear in humans, thalassophobia. Because under your feet at that moment lies an enormous unexplored space, and no matter how much you've read about the ocean, your psyche will still imagine those terrifying pictures. But there is an explanation. It's just fear of the unknown. This is normal. What's really strange is called submersionophobia. To explain briefly, watch a video where a diver calmly crawls along the bottom collecting crabs or shells, and at one point, he hears a strange sound. You might say, okay, there's a big danger of getting under a ship propeller. But even then, imagine a harmless house underwater. Despite its harmlessness, the scene still triggers an inexplicable feeling of fear. But there are things that are certainly not harmless and certainly are dangerous. In 2019, an unknown stranger jogging along the waterfront saw a rusty abandoned ship on the shore. By his impression, it seemed to have been lying there for an eternity. What's this rusty vessel? He thought. Why is it even here? Let it stay there. He took a few shots, showed them to his friend, and ran further. But his friends told him that nothing like it had ever been on this shore before. And while the photo spread across the internet with the caption "Ghost Ship," across the Atlantic, a British icebreaker, the HMS Protector, spotted a strange dark figure on the horizon. As they got closer, they realized it was an old abandoned ship. When they tried to communicate with it, they discovered there wasn't a single soul on board. They also took photos with it in the background and posted them online. Now, get ready. It turned out to be the same ship that the jogging man saw on the waterfront, only now in the center of the ocean. Later, it was discovered that this ship was called Alta, created 50 years ago, and to this day, no one even knows its owner. All that's known is that at one point, it passed near the Bermuda Triangle. And yes, I know what you want, you'll get it. While the ship passed near the Bermuda Triangle, an accident occurred. Fortunately, all crew members were evacuated, but when they returned to the ship itself, it had disappeared. Presumably, it was hijacked by pirates. But the strangest thing is that the pirates didn't take anything from this ship and, moreover, simply left it in the middle of the ocean. After that, the ship completely disappeared from view. And yes, I know as well as you do that all ships have a location tracking system. But what did the authorities see when they opened its movement map? Its point on the map moved hundreds of miles every day. Everything looked as if it simply disappeared in one place and appeared somewhere completely different. But the most inexplicable thing that during all this time, while the ship was considered missing, it somehow crossed the entire Atlantic Ocean and effectively traveled from the Bermuda Triangle to the shores of Ireland with no crew on board. And now you might ask, it's been so long, maybe the authorities have solved the mystery. No, it still lies on the beach in Ireland, and now tourists take photos in front of it. By the way, you can too. Well, let's continue. Nowadays, no one is surprised by similar photos from the ocean floor. Everyone knows they are just ordinary statues made by humans. But now imagine swimming underwater, opening your eyes, and seeing in front of you red smoke coming out of the bottom. How would your psyche explain such a situation? Well, this is exactly what a guy named Tavish Campbell decided to explore while swimming through a local river. He noticed a wide pipe and decided to swim into it, and suddenly red smoke started coming out. And here, you might be surprised, what the heck is red smoke? There's no smoke coming from the bottom. There's just water, agreed. It wasn't smoke at all. It was blood from processed fish along with their remains. It turned out that nearby this place, there was a fish processing factory, and they dump all their waste into this pipe. So, if you ever find yourself in a similar situation, get out to the shore immediately, and not only because it's disgusting, but because, as you know, fish often carry real parasites. You've probably heard stories about people catching worms just from eating bad sushi. When Tavish analyzed this blood and sent it to a laboratory, the staff found several types of intestinal worms and also a fish reovirus. I don't know exactly how it affects humans, but in fish, for example, it stops the heart. Probably, after hearing several similar facts about the ocean, it seems to you that it's better not to leave your house at all, and definitely not to dive, and not to search for some pipes, because life is more valuable than seeing some ghost ship. But now imagine the following situation. You buy an iPhone for $1,200 and place it on a shelf. 5 years pass, you take it down, and in your hands is a completely new iPhone, not a single scratch. Basically, that's how you could live. But then what's the point of that iPhone? You didn't even use it. This is to say that no matter how much we try to protect our lives, you never know where the risk might come from. For example, even take those poor people who went into a cave instead of swimming in the sea, thinking the danger wouldn't reach them. But they didn't account for one small fact. In Thailand, constant tides and rains are normal. And at one point, the water did reach them, flooding the entire cave and leaving them, in fact, in a huge air pocket. To get out, they had to swim through a narrow tunnel completely filled with water. They spent 18 days in this cave until they were finally rescued. By the way, it wasn't easy because each of them had to receive an injection, after which they lost consciousness, and in essence, they were pulled out unconscious. But if going into caves is so dangerous, then does it mean it's better not to go into them at all? You could think so. Or maybe it's better not to drive cars, because according to statistics, every 24 seconds someone dies in an accident. Or even simpler, maybe it's better not to be born at all. Look at this death timer online. Watch every millisecond, someone dies. Just now, remember your most vivid moments in life. Weren't they at least a little dangerous? Even those guys in the cave, they spent 18 days there. Yes, They'll be telling this story to all their friends for the rest of their lives. Of course, this does not mean you should jump off buildings and fight alligators just to have something to tell your kids. Of course, that's not balance. That's foolishness. Living in balance is more about distinguishing risk to your health from senseless fear and fear of seeing a kraken in the depths of the sea. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow.